Hello. In the episode of the podcast today, we're going to talk about setting the right foundations for your startup. This is an incredibly important podcast because what we've seen is that a lot of startups fail not because of execution, but because they had weak foundations from the get-go. And we're going to answer a set of questions that are going to allow you to really build something that is resilient, adaptable, and that has the right foundation for the long term. We are going to answer 3 questions, actually 4. The 3 main ones of the Golden Circle that were published or brought by Simon Sinek, the why, the how, and the what. We're going to add to it a 4th one, which is the who, which really talks about what people are you doing it with and what's the ecosystem that you're building. So this golden circle of what, how, and what really brings clarity to your team, to your investors, to all the stakeholders. It allows for alignment on the long run, and it really forces you to stay focused on what matters and what is really your purpose and your actual mission in life, but most importantly in this particular startup. It allows for better decision making, it allows for better prioritization, it allows for a consistent and coherent messaging. If we think of companies that really had a very solid why, we're going to think of Patagonia, for instance, their commitment to environment and the fact that all aspects of their business really validated that commitment or really showed and substantiated that commitment, turned the brand into a movement, not only a startup. Same thing for Airbnb that talks about, the belonging anywhere of Airbnb that created a full community instead of simple listings. You had experiences, you had a real community. So the why, what is driving you, what is keeping you up at night, what do you want to change in the world, what motivates you, is really something that people can really federate around, be it your customer, your investor, or your team. So you'll often hear people talk about the purpose, vision, mission, and the values of the companies. And this is really a great way to start defining your why. Your purpose is your big dream. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to change the world? So it's something big, ambitious, your big, hairy, ambitious goal. The vision, what you see for the company, is the way or where do you see the company in the next 10, 20 years. So it's really very focused on the objective. It's focused on where do I see the company. So it's inward looking. The vision is what do I do now? It's about the customer. What am I solving for them? What problems am I actually addressing? And finally, the values is about your team. So how do I inspire internally? How do I create these behavior, this culture that create the safe place or the environment that I would like to have? There's a full-on training on mission, vision, values in the IM series. But in a nutshell, the mission, really ask yourself, what am I doing? How am I impacting people? How am I impacting people's life? The vision is where I'm going, and the purpose is why do I exist? So you would usually say the purpose is we exist to. You have to answer that question. The mission is we do this by, and you have to answer that question. And finally, the vision is in the future, we will, ... So just try and ask yourself those 3 questions. And we're going to see with our entrepreneur how they went about it and how they actually answered those 3 very important questions. So after the why, you answer the what. What am I solving? And this is something that we expect to see in your pitch deck. This is something that investors are going to want to have a clear understanding of. And it's really the validation of the market and the problem that you're solving. You're going to hear 3 words very often: TAM, SAM, SOM. So TAM is the total addressable market. So basically, it's the total demand if you had 100% market share. The SAM is the serviceable available market. So it's the portion of the TAM that you can serve based on your product, your geography, your business model. And finally, the SOM is the serviceable obtainable market. So it's realistically, how much of this market can I actually aim to get, to acquire? What is my possible market share of this particular market? So let's say, for instance, if I were to start a meditation app, the TAM would be everyone in the world who uses a meditation app. The SAM would be the English-speaking user who have a smartphone, who are actually interested in wellness. And finally, the serviceable obtainable market is potentially, I don't know, 100K US users who I could reach through marketing, through partnership, etc. The second thing you need to understand when defining the what is the timing and the trends. So what is happening to the market right now? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it stalling? Is there any emergent technologies or any trends that I should be aware of? Do I have a specific advantage that allows me to enter a market that might look saturated? And why is now the right time for me? And why is that the right market for me? So really try to understand how I could enter it and how I could really make a difference in this. And finally, I really need to understand very well the competitive landscape. So who are the players today in the market? What am I competing against? Who am I competing against? Is it very competitive? Do I have an unfair advantage, a differentiation that would allow me to really compete and have my place in this environment? So some tools that are really helpful to understand the what would be surveys, interview, asking people, and getting this kind of the view of the potential users, understanding their pain point. Is the problem something they really feel? Is it something they would be willing to pay money for, etc. The second thing is landing pages and websites. We really encourage our startups before they start developing and going big and spending money to have some, maybe a landing page that would allow you to sign up preemptively to a product, for you to really gauge the attention or the interest of people. Having wait lists, really trying to see if people would actually sign up. Is there an interest? And this is even more true for a feature than for a full product. I'm really having a lot of people telling me I should build that feature. How about I do a wait list and really try and see if there's a demand for that? Look at the Google trend, the search volume, and see if there's people actually trying to get an answer to that question. I need to do a market analysis, a competitor, and a trend research. And finally, you can have small bet, which really act as validation. And we're going to talk about iterative validation in a bit. So launching small, low-cost experimentation to test ideas before rolling it out. When we talk about this part of the journey, we always encourage our startups to start small, have some tests, and validate what they believe to be true. And this brings me to the how. So the how follows what we call the lean startup. So it's an innovation cycle that is basically, I'm going to build, I'm going to measure, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to repeat. So this cycle allows me to really build and grow in an iterative way, instead of dumping everything I have, putting all my resources in one place, and then discovering a lot of mistakes along the way. We have a podcast with Abdo Ashar a bit later in the curriculum that I also encourage you to go and watch, because he's going to explain how to really push this innovation cycle to the maximum and how to really spend more time on the design phase than on the development phase, because the design phase is much cheaper than an actual development phase. So you would start with what we call an MVP, a minimum viable product. This is the simplest version to deliver what your idea is supposed to be. So it's a version of your idea that delivers values, that allows people to understand what it's about without necessarily having all the features and having a full-on project or full-on product. You need to define clear metrics for success. What does success look like for this MVP? Is it the number of signups? Is it the retention? Is it the user action? What really would success look like for you. And you have to define these metrics before actually launching it, because we have a tendency to have a bias and look for metrics that actually support our beliefs if we do that after the product is launched. And then you need to iterate quickly. So you need to use the data to adjust, to pivot, and to take all the learning to change and adjust whatever needs to be done. And finally, you need to fail fast and learn even faster. It's about small, strong-willed decisions that allow you as a founder to be very smart about the use of your time, your energy, your resources, your team's bandwidths, and keep the focus on what's really important. Again, this requires a lot of humility, because a lot of the founders that we work with come with a lot of expectations. They know exactly what they want to do, but you need to also understand what's the feedback, what's the customer response, and be able to change and adjust. Some of the companies that did really well were Dropbox. So Dropbox, before actually developing the full solution, had just a video to test the interest and see, okay, this is what we're planning to do. Are you interested, yes or no? And they actually learned from it and developed the product afterwards. And if you think about Zappos, they actually validated demands by manually buying and shipping shoes at the beginning until they got to a critical mass that allowed them to build a product that was much more attuned to the needs and demands of the customer. So the key takeaway is validate before building, design, spend time on the design part before actually spending all your money and excessive amounts of money on development that will have to be challenged along the way. Finally, and this is a question that we added, but I strongly believe that this is as much of a key component of your golden circle as any. It's the who. What's your ecosystem like? How do you build the ecosystem that allows you to thrive on the short and on the long term? And how do you make sure that you have the right skill sets available around you, especially if you're a single founder? So if you're a single founder, obviously we always encourage you to look for a co-founder that might have a complementary set of skills while having shared values and a kind of an alignment of where we want to go, even if you're not 100% aligned. But having someone that complements your skills, that can bridge any gap or flaws or lack of skills that you might have, but at the same time somebody that you trust, whose judgment you will take into account and who you will have to consider as a peer in your journey. One thing I always tell our founders, and especially our first-time founders, is a co-founder is not necessarily somebody that joins as of day one. You are always free to embark a new founder, because the life of a startup is not one single long life. The life of a startup has a lot of chapters, and during those chapters, you might want to involve someone else that will allow you to scale in a direction that's a new one, where you need a new set of skills. Always think of a co-founder as someone who brings value for the operations, but also value in terms of valuation. So if I look as an investor, if I look at your pitch deck, if I look at your team, and I see that this person is really bringing a set of knowledge and expertise that will give you this competitive advantage, then this is the right profile for a co-founder. The early team you want to hire are builders that believe in your mission. So we're going to talk with Roy about whether we want to have them as full-time employees or part-time employees, or if you want to build an ecosystem of people who can help along the way. But what's really important is to hire people who believe in the vision. Finally, you have to have advisors. These advisors can add experience, credibility, and connections. They really act as sounding board, and they can help a founder whenever they're stuck or whenever they're unsure of a specific decisions. Last but not least, investors. Choose ones who offer a strategic advantage, not only money. They're not supposed to only bring money to the table. They can help you enter a market. They can give you access to connections. They have knowledge in a specific sector that you're in or a geography that you want to enter. So investors are hopefully, whenever, obviously, beggars can be choosers, but when you do have a choice, really look for investors that are going to add value, not only bring money. So the final takeaways: why? Start with why, because it inspires and it aligns. Then the what, because it validates a direction. The how, it drives the progress. The who, they build momentum. So the strong foundations, if I were to summarize everything that you've just said, strong foundations cannot guarantee success, but what I can guarantee is weak foundations will guarantee failure. So on that note, let's get a bit more juice and content and talk about real-life examples. So today I'm joined by Roy Baladi, who's the founder of Jobs for Humanity. So today I'm joined by Roy Baladi, who's the founder of Jobs for Humanity, and we're really excited. I'm really excited to have him share some of his knowledge with you guys. So Roy, not only are you one of our founders, you're a very good and longtime friend. So I'm extremely happy to have you. Thanks for agreeing to coming
Thanks
to coming the show. So what I was trying to get across was the importance of building strong foundations for a startup, because it's important at the start, but also it gives you this resilience, this coherence throughout the journey. And I thought of you because the way you started was really this small effort that you were having to support Lebanon, and it grew and grew and grew without losing the coherence, the initial message, the initial mission. So I really wanted us to talk about this for a while. So if I were to start with the beginning, so can you tell everybody a bit how you started initially with Jobs for Lebanon, and how does this mission still feed your effort today?
The most important thing in everything you do, and the punchline is, have a bullseye. And in our case, this bullseye was spelled to me in a conversation with a friend, Yalda Aukar, saying we'd like to call the Lebanese diaspora to hire Lebanese in Lebanon on a freelance basis. That one sentence is a grandiose sentence because there's 16 million members in the Lebanese diaspora. You need to be able to give them a platform. You have to be able to work asynchronously with everybody. So give them a platform where they can help themselves. And same thing for the job seekers, and it's a two-sided marketplace. So if you think about it from all the components, you can get tripped up. But if you have that bullseye, call the Lebanese diaspora to hire Lebanese in Lebanon, and you're like, okay, what do I need to build? What are the main components that come from here? Khalas, you're clear-eyed, you know what to do. So for us, it was simple. Call is a campaign for the diaspora. To hire Lebanese in Lebanon is a platform for them to be able to post jobs, apply, and follow through. So with these two components in mind, it was easy to explain what it is that we need to do. Enter 13 other volunteers in Jobs for Lebanon. It was a thawra, it was the moment where people, you tell them this idea and everybody was volunteering and supporting.
Yeah.
Exactly. So enter Neil, Ghea, I'm not going to name everybody who's just created an extraordinary movement. But so no, there was a campaign for the diaspora that spread through WhatsApp. The product was a simple site, jobsforlebanon.com, for people to come in, see the jobs, post the job, and then review candidates. And it was as simple as that.
And at the beginning, it was a pro bono, right? It was an NGO. Yeah.
We didn't even have a legal entity. Then we put a non-profit on top of it for it. But the call was very well answered because it was simple, to the point. It's Jobs for Lebanon. The campaign was this video. It worked, right time, right moment, and then people started to apply. And today we have more than 50,000 Lebanese job seekers on the platform.
50. Wow.
And 6,000 members of the diaspora post the jobs, which then created more than 10,000 jobs. And now it's become the household name. If you search for jobs in Lebanon, Jobs for Lebanon, marketing jobs in Lebanon, Jobs for Lebanon is there on Google. So organic traffic is all here. So we didn't need to spend much on almost any of it. And then we've had thousands of people land jobs.
And how did it turn or transform into a real startup company that actually started to monetize some of these efforts? And how did you even keep this kind of initial drive and momentum? I know that whenever you pitch or we discuss, you still have this passion and drive and flame in your eyes. So how did it transform, but at the same time, what stayed the same?
The passion, I mean, if you're going to start something and you think that you're going to be in it for the maximum of its potential, you absolutely have to love it and you have to believe in this. So I used to job coach people And I started in matching people to job in as early as 2010. So I've been in this for 15 years, not here for the short term. And I know that in the next 10 years, people are going to still be looking for jobs. In a different form, there's going to be AI, but the problem is still the same. Find me someone qualified and let me find something that's a good match for me. And I love that because I know that a good introduction for you to meet someone, I could be gone, but that could change your life and that could change their lives. And that feels incredible. So if you have that passion, you're going to solve that problem and wake up every single day. Now, that passion can have a different flavor. Jobs for Lebanon was specifically for the diaspora to hire Lebanese. I then decided to open up Jobs for Humanity, which is this platform to help people from all underrepresented communities land jobs. The reason for this is because of my past background in recruitment tech. I used to volunteer in prisons, I used to volunteer in centers for the blind, and they didn't have outlets to get jobs. So that same call to inclusive employers to hire job seekers from underrepresented community and know how to hire them. So the only level of complexity outside of that same product with a different label and face and brand is, as an employer,
something wider, that yeah.
Exactly. I'm widening the circle, but also I need some education on how to hire this person from an underrepresented background. So we just focused on this one added component, which is that education, which was a complete differentiation to all employers. Booking was the first company that signed up. They didn't really sign up for the talent. They really signed up because they wanted to know how to be inclusive, and specifically of refugees in Ukraine. So we put that program and we grew with them. And then we've had Cartier, Virgin, Thales International, the United Nations ICC, International Center for Computing. So we have today 30 paying customers on the platform and who expect a return. And that return is going to be meeting high quality talent and hiring them. And in some cases, knowing how to create that inclusive process.
So if I were to summarize, your why is really being this connector between a job seeker and an employer, and really being the catalyst or the reason why their life is going to change. So having this amazing impact on life, and starting with an underserved population that was the Lebanese population, and growing into this inclusive realm, and now going even wider. So this was the initial why of really being this connector and changing and having an impact on people's life and livelihoods.
Yeah.
And the what was this platform, right? And the platform itself evolved a lot. If I recall the first time we had a conversation, which was back when you had the Jobs for Lebanon only, your idea of the product was totally different from the one you shared a few days ago even. So can you share a bit more about the iterative process, about how strong-willed you have to be about a specific platform or direction, and at the same time how agile and open to feedback you have to be. So what are the main decisions that as a founder you have to make to stay true to the initial vision or to your core beliefs, but at the same time understand that the customer might want something different?
I'll go with the bullseye again.
Yeah.
So just to recap, everything we talked about before is why are you going to stay in here 5 years later? Because you believe in it. Mm-hmm. But then you also need a bullseye on the what. This product that's a killer product that allows someone to say, I'm going to work. Why are you different than somebody else? Why am I going to work with you? So I do have a bullseye internally, which is 5-3-1. I'll show you 5 people. You'll interview 3. You'll hire 1. At that point, it's an objective bullseye. If someone comes in with a piece of feedback and to say, here's how I think you can grow. To me, does it feed 5-3-1? Does it show me a better solution?
Process,
exactly, a better process. Like, if I'm clear with that bullseye, then I can take all that feedback. Maybe I'll take a bit of this. Maybe I'm like, this person is so right. I'm going to take that approach, and pivots make sense, but ultimately to solve that exact same problem. So, and we've had some, fantastic feedback along the way, and we've had some people told us your product sucks. I've posted and get enough candidates.
And how do you decide? Because as a founder, again, I know your advisory group. I know that you're very much open to feedback. But isn't sometimes too much feedback a killer rather than a helping, a positive thing? So how do you, as a founder, decide what to take in and what to throw? Is it data-based? Is it, qualitative assessments?
Yeah. I think there's a window that you open for real, like the majority of your brain is in the space of, I would like to find the right solution. And then you ask feedback from people who are very good at it. So for example, when you study the market as an entrepreneur, you have to look at your TAM, and then you get to your SOM. And within that TAM are going to be, you're going to discover the buckets of money, because TAM is all about where is the money being spent in that realm that you're in. In our space, you have three. In the people space, you have headhunters. They take 3/4 of the money. You have job boards. They take a bit less than a quarter. And then you have talent databases that you access for a fee that take a very small
Like
amount.
a LinkedIn or...
LinkedIn plays in the job board and the other one. So
Okay.
they take on both, but you have talent databases. Yani, some people are pure databases, like Seek Out, for example. So when you look at the big pot of money, and then you see, if you speak to someone who's just had a conversation, I'm deeply engaged with a senior general manager of the Middle East and Africa for Michael Page. So this is a person who's been in this space for 20 years, knows that thing way better than I do. And so I know to zip it and to listen. And 3 hours later of conversations, all I am is like you are to me, like you're just fully listening and taking it in. And after every conversation, I summarize what we took, I send it back to him. He shows me his engagement. So I'm learning that perspective. Then ultimately, if I take it, it's up to me. But I am in that phase of like trying to understand how can I get to 531 and commercialize 531 better, because I know my why is secure, and my how right now I'm kind of evolving it. And then in other spaces, you can look at the job boards, how have they performed, and people who are experts at that. Also, you can look at generative AI and what are the most innovative ways to connect A to B. So ultimately, we're a marketplace. We're connecting a person to another person. It's almost like, so is Uber, so is Tinder, so are all of these marketplaces.
Yeah.
And so understanding what is the mechanism to connect those two in a smart way and have a success at the end of that quote unquote ride, for example, or transaction is important. So also listening to that perspective, taking it all in and then seeing what makes sense towards that bullseye of 531.
And so what I'm hearing is a lot of humility, a lot of curiosity, but also some mechanism to kind of distill and prioritize the important
An
things.
objective mechanism.
And you didn't talk about any customer feedback, mostly expert feedback. Is it because at this point of your journey, it's not necessarily relevant, or do you actually take it into account?
I take it. I just didn't, think about it at this moment. But yes, when the advisory board, that we have, there's the global head of recruiting at Booking.com.
Amazing, and we're gonna touch on it in a minute. I think your advisory board and support boards are amazing, so we'll cover that.
Nice. Yeah. So Jolie Denboer heads recruitment at Booking.com, has over 100 recruiters that she manages. She's been a customer for 3 years. I've grown a lot in understanding what is it that they need and refine the process, because there's such a human element to be able to deliver this inside an institution. And so that feedback is gold. And as you enter into other markets, like for example in Saudi Arabia, it's a completely different market. You want to hire a local, you need to be attentive to the cultural norms, you need to know how to reach a particular person.
And this localization for you has been quite a big challenge, right? Starting with Lebanon, which is a very unique market, especially during the crisis, then going to Europe and the US, and now focusing on KSA. So how important is this localization and how do you go about it?
So enter the world of my recent pivot.
Yes.
So I was in Europe for the last 3 years. And
having some good reference client, I might
fantastic,
add. So I was quite curious with your decision to pivot.
Yeah. It's a growing market, but people were always meeting remotely.
Yeah.
And I felt that I was running a deal in London, and then one in Paris, and then one in New York, and then one in San Francisco, and then a client in Chicago, never really meeting them. And I really wanted to be in a market where all you have to do is quote unquote conquer gain market share in a city. And to me, I realized that the most effective city in the people space, and it's probably going to be different depending on your industry. In the people space, it's all about, do you have a hiring need? And is it growing? With an economy that's stagnating in Europe at 0% growth, plus or minus 1%, then the hiring, and a saturated market, might I add, then if you were playing cards, it's not a very strong card that you have if you're like, I'm going to help you hire, I'm a new tool for you. Because you're probably going to go back to your current systems, you have your past candidates, existing referrals can probably hire everything, and you might be a nice card to add. Maybe, not really. So if you go to Saudi, which is booming, where on top of it, so
new regulations that are supporting like the
exactly, the ecosystem is not very mature. And on top of it, there is the Saudization, which then if you're able to say you're looking for a fantastic venture partner with X amount of years of experience and with experience in prop tech, and I can find that person for you and Saudi and pre-vetted, then you're like, that's absolutely fantastic. You'll tell all your friends, and all you have to do is just, you can meet them in person, deliver that to them. So the communication and the marketing and the market become more concentrated and helpful. It doesn't change the fact also that in Europe, you're still selling to Europeans at a distance, but you were doing it at a distance anyways.
So what I'm keeping of what you're saying is that iterative process or thinking that you have for MVPs, you also have for the business model as a whole. So the what, the how, the where are questions that you always ask yourself, and you're always being critical about, and you're really listening to the different feedback from the market, from the numbers, to adjust, align, and potentially pivot. So I think this is quite a good learning, to always be open to change and not take even positive signs for granted. Even though Europe was doing well, it could have gone better, and it will go better. My last question is about the how. And I absolutely love the way you actually built your company. So I think initially the fact that you had, as you mentioned, a why that was so strong and so emotional, and that carried so much passion and drive and impact, allowed you to create a first core group of people that were in it because they believed in it. They really believed in the mission. As you grew, you also surrounded yourself with advisory board and with an incredible team of people who can really support, some full-time employee, but a lot that are just, kind of part of your ecosystem that you activate whenever you need them. So I'm very curious to get a bit more of your strategy on building this ecosystem. How did you go about it? Was it really just, organic, or did you actually had some intent and strategy behind it?
This is organic, to be honest. I've been in that space for so long. Since 2010, I've been building people tech products, and having been in between New York and then San Francisco, 8 years in New York, 6 in San Francisco, a few years in Europe, and now in Saudi, we've gotten to meet people who are intellectually curious, who like to solve problems, and then so we started to build a friendship. And right now, the network has become huge in that space. So what do you
have as entities now? You have an informal network.
Yeah.
You have an advisory board.
Let's start with the actual board of the organization, board of directors. Then we have an advisory board that is, I would say, even, it's the best of the best that I can think of, who really trust and who will not bullshit. Like they will really tell me, like, I care about you.
Say it as it is, yeah.
Exactly, I care about you. This is what you need to do.
And that you respect very, very deeply. So their opinion really counts for you. You take it, you take it seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Because I spend so much time executing that sometimes there's no space for tulsuf or ego. None of that. None of that.
I attended one of your advisory board, as you know, and for me, the quality of the people was insane. But the amount of effort and preparation they put in coming to this board, this advisory meeting, that you prepare very well as well. So I think one thing that's very important is when you have advisors that are, time poor, you prepare it very well. You send documentation ahead of time, specific question, you explain your pain point. So they came prepared, and it was such an efficient meeting. I was blown away. So it really works for you, right?
Preparation is so important. Like we have one kind of director of the chair of the advisory board who is not necessarily the most senior person. She could or could not be. but is the person who's going to dedicate the most amount of time and who complements you well. So someone who is highly organized. For me, I'm like, I could go vision and tech execution, but the organization of how to get there, sometimes I am not there. So she grabs my ear and says, okay, this is how you need to do, sends the message in a forceful, direct way to the advisors, and like, this is how we can prepare, so that the 30-minute meeting is not just an update. You're not here to get someone to tap you on the shoulder. That's useless. But if you can come in with like, okay, here's 5 minutes to catch you up on where you were. This is the problem that we need to solve. We're at that. This is our problem. And then create a process for them to be able to say, okay, this is how you ought to solve it, and make space for every person to give their feedback, and then ping pong among themselves.
And what I like about the advisory board, and I encourage some of our startups to do it, is not to have necessarily investors in the advisory board, because automatically their view is skewed. What you have are a set of people from the industry that can really direct you, that don't have any vested interest or any fear of you going a direction or another. So it's a very genuine and you know, very clear-cut, straightforward advice. So it works quite well. Right? You don't have a co-founder by choice, by design, or is it something you plan on changing in the future?
I absolutely would love to have, you know, co-founders. I have colleagues that we've been together since day one. So loyalty, collaboration is definitely not what's missing on our team. Someone who can basically complement the skills of being front of the house, actually, because I'm much more back of the house, building the right product, having that vision of 531, I want to do this. That's my love, using the most cutting edge technologies. And we are the cutting edge when it comes to the product. But the distribution of the product,
the sales, commercialization,
exactly, is who we seek. So of course we are in the process of meeting who could be that right person, but it's not by choice at all. It really is by consequence and of going from this to that and not meeting that person who we have been.
So far,
we could be fully on the same wavelength, and who says, okay, I see this, I can 10x this. This is how. And let me open up and let me prove, you know, a couple of proof points. I'm like, khalas, akid, yalla, let's do this.
Perfect. Thank you, Roy. I mean, you covered everything that I wanted us to talk about. Any last words of wisdom? Anything that you've learned through blood, sweat, and tears that you'd like to share with our crew of early and growth stage startups?
Okay, so I would say 3 things. One, I learned this from Jeff Bezos, not personally, but solve a problem that's going to be here in 10 years. For example, hiring will be here in 10 years. Hailing cabs is going to be here in 10 years. Booking hotels or place to live is going to be here in 10 years. 2, use AI and fall in love with AI as much as you possibly can, and then be comfortable breaking your current product, or else somebody else will. And what I mean by that is, go on LinkedIn and ask who is the best expert in AI that anyone knows in that space, and start to meet them, try to see the tools they use, and you start to use those tools, because it's going to allow you to take advantage of that exponential growth that's happening, saving you a ton of money, for example, on the development front, bringing you a lot more exposure on the product, on the marketing front. And 3, you must have a clear bullseye, or else you're going to be like a pirouette and flying a bit like in the direction of the wind. So it's great to have a lot of feedback, but it only funnels through that why. So if you can summarize what it is that you want to do, your why and your what, in 1 sentence each, then all the feedback can come in a constructive way, and you're going to start to build a very strong vision. And before not too long, you would have answered that 1 sentence. You'd be an expert in that 1 sentence with an open mind, because it's not about you, it's not about anyone or their titles or your titles, but it is about that problem to be solved. It's going to be here in 10 years to make that 1 sentence come true. And this will allow you to go super far without losing sight of what it is that you're aiming to do.
I could not have wished for better parting words. Thanks a lot, Roy, for your time. For all of you who would like to get to know more about Roy, so it's Jobs for Humanity. And if you need to know more about the startup world, the startup scene, we have this series that covers a bunch of the different issues that you have as a first-time and early-stage founder. So please subscribe and see you on the next episode.